a low species value nature system. Since the Trade Center attack, people with CCSU tied to on-off campus Paul Mannafort Drive, on-off campus CCSU, and connected intercity through time, and to the state judicial branch offices, state prison branch offices, houses, and actors next to that, tied to database solution stacking, identity crimes, where and as and how overt criminal enterprises and other nations share policing with and as the value of our markets relationships and store policing relationships, database relationships, and in relationship to database freedom of speech laws that preventive freedom of speech and handed out other natures of fact treatment nature, not just with as slavery laws. In other words, against our founders were fact treatment nature slaves without free speech and other-handed, so they could keep, but by a breaching method to keep everyone to spots measured, forced to database relationships that were monitored by what came before modern nations as a fact treatment nature illness, like a syndrome. I'm not a doctor. I'm an expert on the nature of English grammar, though. I have a double major in just a Bachelor of Arts, but a double major in communications and English. See, they were recorded with systemic doctors. I never had a conversation with in my life. Christina Sioka, a doctor, she's a doctor now, she wasn't a doctor then. She could record and confess him involved with mandate crimes, involved with drug clicks with Hartford Hospital. She doesn't understand the extent of that, but they attached me to fake conversation. I never saw his face in my life. There's a Susan Gilmore also, recorded and confessed by her colleagues, involved with the criminality with them, and with other student of hers that was involved with criminality with a KKK-themed database solution stack of drugs with kids with interbranch cliques, spreading rumors in the past and stuff like that that were to capitalize on in the future because of the numbers of people they have with roles with women behind, who recorded behind what was his interbranch and private hurting, not letting child abuses reported through time, not letting elderly abuses reporting it through time, not letting abuses of poverty, not let demonstrated through time, multi-front, not prejudice, breaching method, consciously maintained, blamed on other and on others and on selves, consciously maintained breaching method, that blamed on else, multi-front, hostage, and prevention, tactical prevention of the rights of people in relationship to people stacking with and as this offensively stacked opponent invested, already propagated, left with our founders. They had to leave. They were forced to a counter position that had to hide their roles with by James Madison and by George Washington in physics. That's why George Washington, right before the last battle of the Revolutionary War, he had to meet with the French general right in Hartford, Weathersfield, Connecticut, where it's Trinity College right now on top of Zion Street. Right there in the corner. A house with a crow's nest on top of it. Boom, they used to shoot and leave that memory of slavery. Because they made it a color thing consciously, because it was inter-nation, specifically to sabotage the Trinity nature, correlation nature, the Trinity nature. Because overall, 3 volumes of the identity that is before inherently being a volume at the same time, it once is a nature in time as inherent volume before juxtaposition with matter, in juxtaposition with matter and already came through juxtaposition with matter. Three positions of forever nature. That was an identity of relationship. Is an identity of relationship to the phenomena of immediate space nature's volume of expanding value, perfectly progressing value, either here or forced from here, to be negative value nature to positive value nature progression somewhere else. Because with ours, as value nature systems, all modern nations tactically ulterior, value nature system, I'm referring to Marx's positions down to the finite. Before, then as the value of a finite. Four shares believed in fact treatment natures, time and positions to each spot, trained reliant upon experts. Now see, that was with a range being exploited originally and still, with areas and states maintained effectively to collusion with other suit and tie nations, other counters to it, also not understand because inter-nation sciences were tactically criminally re-engineered. The campus Marcius that was revealed by nature before this as value, and as value is value nature relationship to itself. So nature itself will demonstrate negative value nature progressions until the original nature of the campus Marcius return, which is a relationship to itself, value/value nature. We have science reveals this. What causes evolution is our nature's relationship to itself. The ancients knew how to cause evolution, but this was probably that's why there are proofs that they knew how to cause evolution. But we have formal physical delusions in the way, and what's hiding that is recorded behind the social media crimes, which is how private and collusion with branches originally and stayed criminal insidiousness nature juxtaposed with the overt and unrealized. All victims, but all victim predator roles, trained to spot through conscious sabotage of each age of correlation nature, each position's body, even presidents, distinctly and non-distinctly, as chiefs and as POTUS. That's why everyone's ours in relationship to how to explain what it was a fact treatment nature racket. It was unnatural motivations, not by money and things like that. It was unnatural motivations because what had those forced on individuals and overall was inter-nation, not for money, for a fact treatment nature phases, perpetual, as a database relationship tied to methods to lock in natures that can be exploited. Because it's like having kids come into a town set up to be their trap by adults. You know what I'm saying? As the only sophistication that realized, and then justifying it against themselves. Never understanding what's using their life progression natures and their life progressions. It'd be like that. So our founders were not with free speech, and that was recorded. And they were forced, some of them, all of them, because they were forced to even survive, to have to pretend they didn't, not to understand too what was forced. They made key people leaders from each areas, but they were still forced into it, so they wouldn't be able to tell who did it because the laws were so crazy against everyone. Think of that, witch trials juxtaposed with the value of slavery, which is all kinds of murder, torture, child abuse, elderly abuse, all extortion. It's all juxtaposed. It's not one thing. It was for a tactically facilitated and tactically maintained, self-maintained roles with and as our pseudo-sophistication nature, blaming it on things like money, on things like prejudice, as nature's fearing and forcing others to fear and not to think about what it was. As life progression cover-up natures, as criminal diseases natures, as indifferent natures, as dumb natures, as hurt natures, as victim predator natures, tactically sabotaged across the board, but distinctly and non-distinctly education, and so fact treatment, the premise treatment nature, because the integrity of the ancient republic for which we stand was demonstrably with English as value, simultaneously with Latin overall up as value, and with Arabic overall right to left as value, and with the identity of a space beyond our control as identity of forward direction. We have physical leverage by and as the value of this identity as relationship to itself as a system perfect. We have leverage overall up. We have leverage overall right to left, overall left to right. But we do not have leverage overall down in space. This is one of all things, simultaneously, inherently, actively, and progressively, and progressive value unto itself further in demonstration to us of the 5 positions of the complete identity of space, and of that as a value-nature relationship to itself as a trinity, to all parts, because it was overall a volume, a nature of volume before and beyond the integrity of Earth one way as one volume, but then 2 natures of volume together simultaneously beyond and not beyond the integrity of that as the active volume and as the perfectly expanding, progressively made here and forced from here when not gathering the value of positive value nature here, the volume here, which positive and value and negative value nature, still temporary positive value nature. The difference between temporary as forever nature, though. We are temporary, lasting forever nature, so we can see that the forever nature is the value of our temporary nature body, with both our metaphysical identity in our body's identity still with the greater identity before than as the value of all finite, all active identities of value, and them all together at once, like time is. Time is without the forever nature understanding. Is per a value nature system that is not using what is true always and noting exceptions to demonstrate what exceptions do demonstrate, which is the exception that comes through everything, that lifted mountains and holds them yet in place. Lethal ideas, the pendulum of outer space. The pendulum of outer space, so near. The pendulum. So, what this I have to do real fast. It's serious to understand that each modern nation is in a trap. This modern infrastructure will show that negative value nature progressions. It will build fact treatment nature, conviction natures that can't force that on paper, but there has to be culture. This is all discuss religion or politics, because they can't appreciate the first part of the Quran, because they can't appreciate the first part of the Old Testament in sequence. And this is about science. This is about science. It's not about opinions with convictions overall that can't deal with the finite and with sequence nature, which is value. The beginning of the Old Testament says where the sciences come together, and all you have to understand is this right here. They make everything a joke. The same people forcing this as recorded using inter-religious this tied to undercovers investigative bodies shared here and there, needing all kinds of criminal insidiousness nature counters originally and still, not by accident. I'm not a police force, I'm not a criminal. Vaccine. The science is sharing identity. Vaccine comes with the campus Marcius until nature has its campus Marcius returned. Spelled with a C, not a T. Because English didn't evolve, it's still obfuscated. It was taken through phases that humanity was taken to be the defensive positions in relationship to databases, in relationship to space, areas, states maintained, criminally foreign influenced, inter-nation, so no one could describe it. That's what they put color in there for. Black and white, Asian, a minority figured out, maybe they were going to get in trouble. So that's where we're going to have to take counter positions, though, because it was definitely history, not how it was, is told and received inter-science. In other words, that's why Jesus Christ said he's the Alpha and he is the Omega. Alphabet. This is about what was criminally re-engineering. Then they try to say something, they're going to say anything other, and then just write whatever in databases. Steal free speech and then just write other, which is still happening. And it's each year. Progressively, it's facilitated by what's facilitating it originally and still, because it already propagated. Like if you make a crop, you propagate it to be maintained for mass. People relied on it. Then cultivation of it is what, after you have the seeds and stuff, so now you're going to pass the seeds. The farmers are going to grow it. Rely on the farmer. Crazy system that has fact cheap in nature, relied on systems other than actual, always, and from a bridge originally negotiated with and as the only nations involved, we were only lifted. Hurt victim predators were recorded. That's what is behind what's people stacking in Syria, in America. It came before our nations were even founded. And this is only letting lifted suit and tie sciences treatments that can only blame leaders that are victims forced by what each nation's exploiting, each position, areas and states, inclusion, forcing presidents to ignore fake news. Because there and here, we have hospital psychology tied to courts and to prisons, and to areas, intercampus, database solution stacking, facilitated to roles with it, orchestrated, sequentially, progressively, interjected inter-nation on and off campuses, relationships to each age of campus, the way they're connected, and two people like that with Church Street or Wethersfield, tied to CCSU, tied to Hartford Hospital. We have doctor psychology. We have opinions. This is with rackets with agencies recorded with crimes rolls with predicate acts in the Ninth Circuit, like proven right before the context in court sequence shifts appeared to the Ninth Circuit. Panel of judges made it look like late. Now proven led to 2006 case with former FBI director, part of a case with a former, that was going on at the time of my father's death, former FBI director Robert Luskin and his co-defendants who had kids and who had lived on the street of a kid who lived in Newington who went to my school. But these were people placed in my classrooms, recorded and confessed, tied to sex offender drug cliques with crimes with courts, police, and judges, use them to direct them for witness fabrication rules, where no one understands it, so they could tell that it's true, but they use for fact treatment racket rules. In other words, for roles that's with crimes and cases, and where they don't talk about that because they're tied to medical corruption, where they pretend that they're not supposed to speak medical information and they're typing fake medical information for each age of fact treatment nature. They're attaching kids to fake relationships to doctors, and worse, for those being the same doctors that other victims are going to seek treatment from. Recorded, I'm not a doctor, recorded criminals, recorded forging names, pretending they know people in their towns through time, setting up illusions so they could pretend that in the future, which are only illusions, recorded if they have a picture, whatever, walking by me or something like that. And because they also have recorded and confessed criminal roles with 2 speech classes teachers I had, and what they used them for, and the students in those classes with the tied college campus, university campuses involved with the rest of the child sex offenders, with the Wethersfield School tie the principal sex offender just sentenced. Worse is still recorded with the schools. We have doctors recorded with that too, ulterior. Also with the same cliques that are also involved with forensics crimes. Crimes with policing of drugstores. Bob Chase was supposed to read me a police report, didn't read it, because they made a police report arresting me, so I wouldn't tell on them recorded with worse sex crime acts and roles with the principal sex offenders' kids. Also per the police chief's kid there, daughter, and his extended family with drug crime roles, setting up illusions tied to beach places and stuff like that. Intercity, interstate, worse than interstate. Through time, database illusion stack with my crimes in the past. They don't let anyone have a response because they keep saying, they direct people even to make fake Facebook pages and stuff like that to cover up the criminal uses of the Facebook pages with the schools, with the drug cliques and the sex offenders with the doctors, with crimes with the courts further, all kinds of social security, all kinds of crimes,